Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me today on the channel where everyday pocket change can hide unbelievable stories. Because in this video, we are diving deep into one of the most shocking and fascinating modern coin mysteries ever talked about, the 2018 P. Roosevelt Liberty 1 dime, a coin with a face value of just 10 cents that, under extraordinary circumstances, rare minting errors, unusual mint mark mistakes, and almost mythical possibilities has been rumored, discussed, debated, and imagined by collectors as being worth as much as $54 million, a number that sounds impossible at first but becomes a thrilling journey once you understand how numismatics, rarity, condition, error combinations, historical context, and collector psychology collide to create legendary values. So settle in, imagine holding a single dime between your fingers, and let's explore how such a small coin could ever be spoken of in the same breath as priceless treasures. The Roosevelt dime has been a staple of American currency since 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt and symbolizing liberty, resilience, and democratic values, and by 2018 the design was already familiar to generations, which makes the idea that a 2018 P dime could be extraordinarily valuable even more captivating because modern coins are expected to be common, mass-produced, and largely overlooked. Yet history has shown again and again that rarity does not always come from age alone, but from mistakes, anomalies, and moments when the minting process deviates from perfection. The 2018 P. Roosevelt dime was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally uses the P mint mark, and millions upon millions of these coins entered circulation, most worth nothing more than 10 cents, used for parking meters, vending machines, and loose change jars. But hidden within these massive production numbers lies the possibility of error coins that escaped quality control. And it is those rare survivors that ignite the imagination of collectors. Mint errors can occur at many stages, including planchet preparation, die creation, die maintenance, striking, and post-strike handling, and when multiple errors happen on a single coin, especially in a dramatic and visible way, the result can be a one-of-a-kind specimen. One of the most discussed possibilities for extreme value in a 2018 P. Roosevelt dime involves a wrong planchet error, where the dime is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin, and if such a planchet were made of an incorrect metal composition, such as silver, gold, or an experimental alloy, the intrinsic value combined with the shock factor could send the coin into legendary status. Imagine a 2018 P dime struck on a gold planchet intended for a commemorative or experimental issue, fully struck with clear Roosevelt details but weighing far more than normal and displaying a rich golden color. A coin like that would not only defy expectations but also challenge established records, especially if it were confirmed as unique. Another powerful value driver comes from off-metal errors involving transitional compositions, and while the Roosevelt dime has been clad since 1965, errors involving silver planchets have been documented in other years, so the hypothetical discovery of a 2018 P dime struck on a silver planchet, particularly if it were a leftover or misallocated blank from another minting program, would immediately place the coin among the most famous modern errors ever known. Beyond planchet errors, die errors play a massive role in creating ultra-valuable coins, and the most exciting possibilities involve doubled dies, triple dies, or even quadruple dies that show dramatic doubling across the date, mint mark, inscriptions, and Roosevelt's profile, and while minor doubling is common and often worth little, extreme hub doubling that is bold, separated, and unmistakable can turn a simple coin into a numismatic superstar, especially when discovered on a modern issue, where collectors do not expect such errors to survive. A 2018 P. Roosevelt dime with a dramatic double die obverse combined with a double die reverse, both strongly visible without magnification, would be almost unheard of and could attract worldwide attention. Mint mark errors are another key element in this story, because although the Philadelphia Mint uses a P mint mark, mistakes involving missing mint marks, repunched mint marks, misplaced mint marks, or even incorrect mint marks have fascinated collectors for decades, and the idea of a 2018 P dime displaying an anomalous mint mark, such as a D or S, or a mint mark punched multiple times in wildly different positions, opens the door to extraordinary value discussions. Even more sensational would be a 2018 dime showing both a P and another mint mark simultaneously, a phenomenon that theoretically should not occur in modern minting but has been rumored, debated, and searched for relentlessly by collectors hoping to uncover the impossible. Die clashes add another layer of intrigue, especially when severe, because when obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, they can transfer elements of the opposite design onto the coin, and a dramatic die clash showing reverse letters, torch outlines, or Roosevelt's profile bleeding through in ghostly detail can be visually stunning, and when combined with other errors such as doubling or off-center strikes, the resulting coin becomes exponentially more desirable. Off-center strikes themselves are a classic error type, and while minor off-centering is common, a perfectly off-center strike that still shows the full date and mint mark, especially at an extreme angle, can command serious premiums, and if such a strike were paired with a rotated die error where the reverse is misaligned by a dramatic degree, the coin would be considered a minting marvel. Broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar and spreads wider than normal, can also produce impressive results, particularly when the design remains sharp and complete, and a 2018 P dime with a massive broad strike combined with metal flow lines, cracks, and breaks could look like a miniature work of abstract art. Die cracks and die breaks are another avenue for extreme value when they reach a level of severity that transforms the coin's appearance, creating raised lines, blobs, or even large chunks of missing or displaced metal, and collectors often give nicknames to such coins based on their shapes, and a 2018 P dime with a massive retained cut or a dramatic shattered die effect could easily become famous within numismatic circles. The concept of a $54 million value pushes the discussion into the realm of absolute uniqueness, where the coin would need to combine multiple spectacular errors in a single example, perhaps a wrong metal planchet, extreme doubled die, dramatic off-center strike, unusual mint mark anomaly, and severe die break all on one coin, creating something so bizarre and unrepeatable that it transcends traditional pricing guides and enters the world of elite collectors and museums. Provenance also plays a critical role in such valuations, because if a coin can be traced back to a specific moment, such as being discovered in an unopened mint bag, a sealed bankroll, or directly from a mint employee release, its story becomes as valuable as the metal itself. And a 2018 P dime with documented origins tied to a known minting anomaly would command far more attention than an undocumented find. Condition is equally important, because error coins that survive in uncirculated or near-perfect condition are exponentially rarer than those found worn in circulation, and a pristine example with full luster, sharp details, and minimal handling marks would be far more valuable than a damaged or heavily worn counterpart. Third-party grading and authentication would be absolutely essential for any coin approaching such astronomical value, as professional services provide legitimacy, protect against counterfeits, and assign recognized grades that the market can trust, and a top-graded error coin encapsulated and verified would stand at the pinnacle of modern numismatics. Market psychology cannot be ignored either, because value is ultimately determined by what collectors are willing to pay, and when a coin captures the imagination of the public, drives headlines, and becomes the subject of viral stories, auction wars can push prices to unbelievable heights, especially when wealthy collectors view the coin not only as a collectible but as a cultural artifact and investment. The idea of a $54 million dime also taps into the enduring appeal of treasure hunting, the belief that life-changing discoveries can still be found in ordinary places. Error hunters and numismatic dreamers around the world, because in this video we are talking about the 2020 D. Roosevelt Liberty Dime, a coin with a face value of just 10 cents that under extremely rare circumstances, due to minting errors, mistakes, and mint mark anomalies, has been rumored, speculated, and passionately debated as being potentially worth up to $100 million. A number so shocking that it forces you to rethink everything you thought you knew about modern U.S. coinage. And as we begin this journey, remember that the greatest treasures often hide in the most ordinary places, sometimes right in your own pocket. The Roosevelt dime has been part of American daily life since 1946, introduced shortly after the death of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt as a tribute to his leadership and his role in founding the March of Dimes, and by 2020, the design had become so familiar that most people barely glance at it before spending it, yet the 2020D issue, struck at the Denver Mint, arrived during one of the most chaotic periods in modern mint history, a year marked by global disruption, staffing shortages, accelerated production schedules, and unprecedented pressure to keep coins flowing into circulation, conditions that create the perfect storm for minting anomalies, errors, and mistakes that normally would have been caught and corrected long before coins left the mint. And it is within this context that the legend of the ultra-valuable 2020D Roosevelt dime was born. To understand how a 10-cent coin could ever be discussed in the same breath as 8-figure or even 9-figure valuations, you first have to understand the psychology and mechanics of the numismatic market, where rarity, uniqueness, historical context, and collector demand collide, because value is not determined by metal alone but by story, scarcity, and the impossible odds of survival. The standard 2020D Roosevelt dime is composed of a copper core clad with layers of nickel, weighs 2.268 grams, measures 17.91 millimeters in diameter, and normally carries no premium beyond face value when circulated, yet when something goes wrong during the minting process, when dies clash, when planchets are wrong, when mint marks are misplaced, missing, doubled, or repunched in ways never intended, the coin can cross a threshold from currency into artifact. One of the most powerful drivers behind the hypothetical $100 million valuation is the concept of a unique, or near-unique error, a coin that exists either as a one-of-one specimen or as part of an extremely tiny group that slipped through quality control, because in numismatics, a unique coin occupies a realm where traditional price guides become irrelevant. And value is determined almost entirely by what a single wealthy collector is willing to pay to own something no one else can have. Among the most discussed possibilities surrounding the 2020D Roosevelt dime is a mint mark error involving the Denver D, which in modern coinage is punched into the die rather than the coin, making errors involving mint marks much rarer than in earlier decades, yet not impossible, and this opens the door to scenarios such as a missing mint mark on a die intended for Denver production, a doubled or distorted D caused by die damage or improper hubbing, or even a mint mark that appears in an impossible position due to die rotation, clash, or contamination, and if such an error were combined with other anomalies on the same coin, the value could escalate exponentially. Imagine a 2020 Roosevelt dime struck at the Denver Mint but missing its D entirely while also showing extreme doubling on the obverse portrait, visible not just under magnification but with the naked eye, combined with off-metal compositions such as being struck on a silver planchet or an experimental alloy never intended for circulation. And then add a dramatic off-center strike that still preserves the full date and legend, and suddenly you are no longer talking about a minor error but a perfect storm of numismatic improbability. Another possibility that fuels the $100 million conversation is the idea of a transitional error, a coin struck using dies or planchets intended for a different year, denomination, or composition. And while transitional errors are more common in years when major design or composition changes occur, the chaos of 2020 created circumstances where experimental blanks, foreign planchets, or test materials could theoretically have been present in the mint environment, and if a Roosevelt dime were struck on a gold planchet, a thick planchet intended for another denomination, or a foreign alloy with no official record, its uniqueness alone would push it into a valuation category that defies logic. The numismatic world has seen examples of coins selling for millions of dollars not because they are old, but because they should not exist at all, such as the 1943 copper penny or the 1975 no-S-proof dime. And when collectors encounter something that breaks the rules of minting history, demand skyrockets. Die errors also play a massive role in the speculative value of the 2020D dime, particularly catastrophic die failures, where cracks, breaks, and retained cuts create dramatic raised metal patterns that alter the design in ways that are visually stunning and instantly recognizable. And if such a failure occurred early in the die's life and then the die was immediately destroyed or replaced, only a handful of coins might exist, making them legendary among error specialists. A double die obverse or reverse on a modern dime is already rare, but an extreme example with strong separation, full design duplication, and perfect clarity would be considered one of the greatest modern errors ever discovered, especially if authenticated by top grading services and confirmed as a new, previously unknown variety. Another layer of intrigue comes from the possibility of a mule error, where a dime obverse could be paired with a reverse intended for another denomination or even another country, and while mules are extremely rare, they are not unheard of, and when they appear, they often command staggering prices because they represent a breakdown in one of the most fundamental safeguards of minting. If a 2020 Roosevelt dime were discovered with a mismatched reverse, especially one that contradicts all known production records, it would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. coins ever found. The $100 million figure also reflects not just the coin itself but the narrative power of timing, because 2020 was a year that will be studied and remembered for generations, and coins from that year carry an emotional and historical weight that transcends metal, representing resilience, disruption, and a world forced to adapt. And collectors often place immense value on artifacts tied to pivotal moments in history. When you combine that historical significance with an error so extreme that it challenges official mint documentation, you create a perfect recipe for numismatic mythology, where the coin becomes more than an object, it becomes a symbol. Another factor that drives speculative valuations is the concentration of wealth among elite collectors who view ultra-rare coins not just as hobbies but as alternative assets, and for these individuals, spending tens of millions on a unique coin is not about resale value but about legacy, prestige, and ownership of something irreplaceable, and in private treaty sales, where bidding wars happen behind closed doors, prices can reach levels that never appear in public auction records. Certification and authentication are crucial in this process, because a coin rumored to be worth $100 million would undergo the most intense scrutiny imaginable, including metallurgical analysis, die-state studies, provenance research, and peer review by leading experts, and if it passed all those tests, the resulting documentation alone would add to its mystique and desirability. The role of condition cannot be ignored either, because a flawless or near-flawless error coin is exponentially more valuable than one with wear, damage, or environmental issues, and a 2020 dime discovered in uncirculated or mint-state condition with blazing luster and razor-sharp details would stand at the pinnacle of modern error collecting. Ordinary-looking 2022 D. Roosevelt Liberty dime in your hand, a coin with a simple 10-cent face value that most people would spend without a second thought, yet this very coin has sparked stories, debates, and jaw-dropping speculation about how it could be worth an unbelievable $111 million, not because it was made of gold or silver, not because it was officially released as a rare commemorative, but because of a perfect storm of errors, mistakes, mint mark anomalies, striking irregularities, and once-in-a-lifetime possibilities that separate an everyday dime from a coin that could become one of the most valuable modern U.S. coins ever imagined. So stay with me as we take a deep journey into the fascinating world of the 2022 D. Roosevelt dime, its mysterious potential, and the extraordinary circumstances that could elevate it from pocket change to legendary status. The Roosevelt dime itself has a long and respected history, first introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a leader closely associated with the March of Dimes and the fight against polio, and since then it has been a symbol of resilience, continuity, and American coinage tradition, with millions upon millions minted every year, making most examples extremely common, and yet history has proven again and again that rarity is not always planned. Because some of the most valuable coins ever known were born from accidents rather than intention, and the 2022 D. Roosevelt dime represents a modern canvas where such accidents could occur. Struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark on the reverse side near the torch, these dimes were produced in massive quantities using high-speed presses, advanced quality control, and modern minting technology, which ironically makes any surviving error even more dramatic and potentially valuable. Because the fewer mistakes that are supposed to happen, the more significant each one becomes when it slips through. The idea of a $111 million valuation does not come from face value, metal content, or standard collector demand, but from the theoretical convergence of multiple extreme errors on a single coin, something so rare that it would be considered unique, or nearly unique in the numismatic world, and uniqueness is the foundation of legendary coin values. One of the most important factors that could drive such astronomical worth is a major mint mark error, because mint marks are carefully controlled identifiers of where a coin is struck, and any deviation from the norm can immediately signal something extraordinary, such as a doubled mint mark where the D appears clearly duplicated or tripled due to a misaligned punch or die hubbing anomaly, or even more sensational, a wrong mint mark entirely, such as traces of a P or S mint mark on a coin that should only bear a D, suggesting die contamination. Reused dies, or experimental mishandling within the mint. Imagine a 2022 dime struck in Denver, using a die that somehow carried remnants of another mint's marking, creating a hybrid coin that officially should not exist, and suddenly you are no longer talking about a simple error but a historical anomaly. Beyond mint marks, striking errors play a massive role in value, and for the 2022 D. Roosevelt dime, the possibilities are astonishing when you consider what could happen if multiple striking errors align, such as an off-center strike where the design is dramatically shifted yet still fully identifiable, combined with a broad strike that causes the coin to spread wider than normal due to the collar failing, and then layered on top of that a double strike or even a triple strike, where the coin is struck more than once by the dies, each time slightly misaligned, creating ghost-like overlapping images of Roosevelt's profile and the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse. A visual chaos that collectors crave because it tells the story of mechanical failure frozen in metal. Another category of error that pushes value into the stratosphere is planchet-related mistakes, and this is where imagination meets reality, because planchets are the metal blanks before they are struck, and if something goes wrong at this stage, the result can be astonishing, such as a wrong planchet error where a 2022 D dime is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, like a penny, nickel, or even a foreign coin blank, leading to incorrect weight, thickness, and diameter. And if proven authentic, such an error instantly places the coin into elite territory. Even more dramatic would be a 2022 D. Roosevelt dime struck on a silver planchet or experimental alloy not meant for circulation, perhaps from leftover testing materials or improperly segregated blanks. And while the mint has strict controls, history shows that mistakes have escaped before, and when they do, they become numismatic legends. Die errors also contribute heavily to potential value, and a cracked die cuts or retained die breaks can all add character and rarity, but the most valuable scenarios involve dramatic die failures, such as massive die breaks that remove large portions of the design, creating raised blobs of metal that interrupt Roosevelt's face or distort the torch on the reverse, or a shattered die that produces chaotic, jagged lines across the coin. Each one a fingerprint of stress and failure within the minting process. Then there are doubled dies, one of the most famous and sought-after error types in U.S. coinage, where the design itself is doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process, and a strong doubled die on a 2022 D. Roosevelt dime, especially one showing clear separation on inscriptions like Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, the date, or even Roosevelt's eye and profile, would instantly become a collector sensation, and if paired with other errors, it could reach unprecedented valuations. Another layer of intrigue comes from missing or weak elements, such as a missing mint mark where the D is entirely absent due to a filled die or grease strike, or missing letters where portions of the inscription fail to strike fully, creating blank spaces that defy expectations. And while minor examples are common, an extreme version that removes critical identifying elements while preserving overall clarity could be both mysterious and immensely valuable. Alignment errors add another dimension, where the obverse and reverse designs are misaligned beyond acceptable tolerance, sometimes rotated significantly, creating a coin that appears twisted when flipped, and while rotation errors are known, an extreme rotation combined with other errors would push rarity to extraordinary levels. One of the most fascinating and speculative aspects of the $111 million valuation is the possibility of a transitional error, which occurs when a coin is struck using dies, planchets, or design elements from different years or types during a changeover period. And while 2022 was not a major design transition year for the dime, the unexpected use of experimental dies, test hubs, or prototype elements could create a coin that bridges official records and undocumented mint activity, something collectors and historians would fight to own. Condition also plays a role, because era coins that survive in pristine, uncirculated, or mint state condition are exponentially more valuable than those that show wear and a flawless surface. Combined with dramatic errors would make a 2022 D Roosevelt dime not just rare, but visually stunning, the kind of coin that museums, elite collectors, and private investors would compete over fiercely. Provenance, or the documented history of a coin, further fuels value, because if such a dime were discovered in an original bankroll, mint-sealed bag, or directly traceable to a specific mint release, its story would add legitimacy and allure, turning it into a centerpiece of modern numismatic history. The numismatic market itself thrives on stories, uniqueness, and the human fascination with mistakes, because errors remind us that even the most advanced systems are imperfect, and when those imperfections create something beautiful, rare, and unrepeatable, value follows naturally. Comparing the hypothetical $111 million 2022 D dime to past record-breaking coins helps put things into perspective, because coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair dollar achieved legendary prices due to a combination of rarity, story, legality, and symbolism, and while a modern dime seems unlikely to join that club, history has shown that the impossible becomes possible when a coin stands alone in its category. The idea of one dime being worth more than gold bars, luxury mansions, or entire collections may sound exaggerated, but in the world of high-end collectibles, value is not always rational. It is emotional, competitive, and driven by the desire to own something no one else can. Every year, collectors search their change, rolls, and inherited collections hoping to find something extraordinary. And while most 2022 D Roosevelt dimes are worth exactly 10 cents, the slim possibility that one could